The Silly Goose Gang Podcast.
And we are back in episode 40 of the Silly Goose Gang Podcast. And we're joined tonight, or this afternoon over in the East Coast there, by Phil Daru from Daru Strong in Boca Raton, Florida. So, Phil, thanks so much for taking the time to jump on our podcast.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate you guys having me. It's great.
Absolutely. We were just chatting.
Hopefully... I was just going to say, hopefully, I know you've got some knee trouble over there, so hopefully a couple of Scottish guys can cheer you up a little bit, help you through this terrible time.
I'm smiling more than I have today, so I'll give you that.
That's
good. Then that's good.
I know what
Oh, sorry, Alex.
I've had 13 knee operations, including 2 ACL surgeries, so I am feeling your pain in every way, shape, and form.
Yeah. Shit, that's crazy, man. That's a lot of operations just on one particular side of the body, man. That's crazy.
Well, see, it's spread between the two, so I'm quite lucky. I've got one good knee that's had 6, and then my bad knee's 7. So I've got a slightly better knee that's only had the 6 operations. And it's because when I was 18 and 19, and I played rugby and I played American football, but I thought I knew better than highly paid orthopedic surgeons. And when they would tell you, this is going to take 18 months, and you don't get that point about 3 months in, you go, actually, it feels okay. And then you plant your foot to cut an angle, and suddenly your knee just goes, and then you're back under the knife to fix the game.
Yeah, we got to wrap
it. That's why Ali bails out quite early when we start playing leg locks. He doesn't like playing them because his legs are fucked.
I'm not trying to feel any of that. As soon as you grab my leg, I'm tapping. So.
It's my favorite. That's my favorite thing at the minute. So but so I get to fuck Ali's legs up. It's fine. So you say you hurt the leg like a year ago, did you say?
Yeah, I think it was December 1st or 2nd, something like that, and then of last year, and got my MRI the 31st, and then I was scheduled to go in for surgery. I had a couple of things going on. I had a couple of fighters fighting. Joanna Jedrzejczyk and Dustin Poirier were both fighting like back to back, so I had to be with them. So I didn't really want to get surgery then and be down. So I had to wait for that, and then I think I started to schedule the initial procedure March or April, one of those two, and that's when the whole COVID thing kind of went crazy on us over here. So they stopped with the non-emergency surgeries, and so it just got postponed, and we went through this whole thing, and I kind of just was like, all right, well, I was getting ready for surgery regardless. I was doing a lot of prehab stuff and working on joint integrity and stability and mobility prior to this, just in general, but I really focused on it. And then, after it got basically shut down, I was like, man, I'm just going to get stronger. And so I just kept lifting and kept moving around as safely as possible, not doing any type of high impact work or rotational work or lateral force. It was just basically in the sagittal plane, and I was just getting stronger there. The only thing I would do was a lot of sled drag variations and building up my posterior chain. So people see my videos, they were like, how are you doing that with no ACL? Because I strengthened up all the muscles surrounding that issue. So that was what carried me over into getting the surgery now just recently last week. So I'm about a week out from surgery. So I'm going through the motions right now.
Okay. How just because you said you were training at the time, Joanna and Dustin, are you well enough? Do you know those guys well enough that you having a fucked up knee doesn't really affect the coaching side at all, because they kind of know your procedure and how you expect them to do things? You don't have to show them too much.
Yeah, with the higher level guys, I like to be hands on. So with the ones that have the biggest fights coming up and things of those, like, I'm a very hands-on coach. I don't even like to do online coaching a whole lot. But if I have to, I will. And if people need my help, I will. I got a guy by the name of Scott Askham, who's out in England right now. He can't get over to, so I'm doing more virtual coaching for him. But, that's very seldom that I'll do that. You know what I mean? Because I like to be hands-on. I like to see my athletes. I like to communicate with them daily. I like to see how they're moving. And if I can't show the movements properly, it's very hard for me to communicate. A lot of the fighters like to see it first, and then they can basically imitate it. So I usually show all the movements, and it's obviously going to be very hard for me to do so with one leg. But we still are able to do what we need to do. Like right now, I have a team of coaches. I just recently left American Top, so now I have a team of coaches that work with me in my gym, and they're taking over right now for me. So I'm very grateful for that, and having the ability to have that, regulated to the point where I don't need to be in there all the time, which is very important for a business owner and for a head coach. A head coach of whatever you're strength and conditioning or skills training. You need to have assistant coaches that can help you out even when you're down or you can't get to the gym. So you develop a system, and that system needs to be able to be produced in all aspects with you not being there at all times. So that was kind of setting up the principles and setting up the entire platform so that these people can do what they need to do even when I'm absent.
So how do you pick the guys that you want to work with you, Phil? Is it guys that is it guys that have trained under you before? How do you go around? Like you say, that's such an important part of the team to have guys that you can trust 100%.
Yeah, it's funny, man. I get questions like this all the time when like guys want to intern with me and they want to coach with me, and I really am looking at experience more than just an educational background. I do want them to be educated. I do want them to have some type of degree, because that shows me that they were diligent enough to get through school. But for the most part, I want to see experience either in fighting or in coaching, strength and conditioning. So with me, I have all of my coaches that are with me right now. They all have a mixed martial arts, boxing, some type of background, and at the high level too. I have Anne-Marie, who is a 2 or 3-time world champion boxer. I have Maureen Shea, who's my assistant, who is a 2-time world champion boxer. I have Desmond Moore, who's an NCAA All-American wrestler and a professional fighter, who is the director of performance for me. So these individuals have not only knowledge of my training and my systems because they've actually trained with me as a fighter, also have experiences in the fight game itself. So fighters really, really apt to take in more advice from them because they can connect with them on that level,
100%.
And there, it's very hard for an athlete to buy into an assistant coach who, one, doesn't have the experience as the head coach, and 2, has never done anything similar to the things that they're doing inside the cage or the ring. So that's where I look at it. I know that's kind of like, it's very hard to come by, but I like it because the fighters that I have now, these guys are at the end of their career. And so I'm giving them an opportunity to change careers and be successful in a new career. And that is strength and conditioning or coaching or whatever they want to do. So very, very grateful to have that ability to do that. And then also it gives me more of a sense of a purpose to bring these people that don't have, an option, or they don't feel like they have an option. We can take them and bring them into a new world, but still be in the same sport that they love, and help the people that ultimately.
I mean, so I came from an amateur boxing background in Scotland, and when I first started, some of the coaching still is absolute fucking nonsense, just shit. Just anybody could turn up and teach a boxing class. And when you were a novice, you had a few fights, you just kind of went, well, I mean, if this is what it is, this is what it is. And then once you became one of like the experienced guys, you were like, this whole system from the minute you walk into the door to the minute you walk out the door is fucking nonsense. But it's all these. Yeah, genuinely, I can remember Phil getting offered a fight. And the guy who run the boxing club was like 70 years old at the time, and he was like, just get a black bag on, go and get your working boots, and go and run about all night. And he's going, what the fuck? Like, and then at the time when you had like 3 fights, you're just going, oh, okay, and this is what you do. Yep. And then, you know, looking back, once you got to like a decent level, you're like, who the fuck is telling anybody to do that? You complete dickhead. It's just, you know what I mean? It's you know, but that stuff still goes on. So,
the coaching's so important, and also having a knowledge of the sport and having an understanding of the science behind it as well is so key. Because I get not from the boxing. I did rugby and American football, and obviously in Britain, American football was very, very low level. And then the World League and then NFL Europe came over, and we got exposed to coaches from NFL level, from NC2A, Division 1 level. Some of the players came across, and you could see the level of coaching improve, which then improved the players. And having that difference, that understanding of that top level makes a massive difference.
Yeah, I could see that. And it's funny because, you know, it's not – American football obviously is our biggest sport here in America, right? And that's usually where the coaching really excels, you know. But I see overseas in other countries where there's other sports like football, like European football or rugby, for instance, that over here it's not that high level when you're talking about coaching, when you're talking about athletes, because it really depends on the area. And so when it comes down to fighting, though, however, I feel like that is very international. I feel like it's primal, you know. So finding coaches to develop these athletes, these fighters, it should be a lot, I don't want to say easier, but it should be a simpler find as opposed to, you know, somebody trying to be an expert in putting a ball into a basket, you know, something of that nature, really, where, you know, fighting is in your DNA, you know what I mean? So that's why I think that a lot of people will take to it. I think that's why any combat sport is highly watched, because people think or they feel like they can relate to that no matter what.
It's I think it was Dana White that said every sport sort of descends into fighting, so why not just take away the sport and fucking fight? It's like, it's one of those things where, you know, it all descends into fighting, so why not just fucking fight? But yeah, do you find like, I don't know if it's a thing in America, but certainly over here, it seems like the guys who fought at the higher level tend to be not the best coaches, and the guys who maybe weren't the best fighters become really good coaches. I don't know, is that a thing that translates into America?
I think so. You know, I think that because of the fact that those guys have to put so much time and effort and energy in themselves, and they're very selfish, have to be. It's very hard to transition into being a coach because they feel like everybody should be able to do what they've been able to do. You know, when it's not the case. Where the guys, you know, maybe second tier, regional scene guys or whatever, they have the ability. They have the ability to be selfless because they had to help their teammates out all the time. If they were a training partner, whatever, you know, they had to do that. In any sport in general, it's funny. It's like they say, if you can't do, you teach. So at the end of the day, it kind of makes, you know, worldwide. You know, the thing with me was that I was always willing to help, but I was always a captain of my teams. And I feel like if you can take on that leadership role, it can transfer over into coaching very well, as long as you don't have the highest expectations for every single individual that you coach. You know, it's hard for me at times. That's why I don't really work with the general public a whole lot, because I watch them and I'm like, why can't you just squat? Like, why can't you just do a lunge? You know what I mean? Or why can't somebody just throw a straight right or a jab correctly? You know, and it's a point of understanding that not everybody is born with that natural ability, you know, where the ability is just not there.
I mean, not everybody's going to be the world's strongest man, or not everybody's going to be, you know, Khabib. So you have to, you know, kind of understand that, you know, this guy's might just want to be a reasonable powerlifter for fun, or they might just want to have a few fights. So, yeah, from a coaching's perspective, luckily, it's It's quite an interesting thing coaching. Where I'd like to eventually become a jiu-jitsu coach. Way down the line. So it's quite interesting to study how your coach does things. Even just like the little things that you don't realize that he's actually doing. To other guys to kind of understand and create a nice bond within the team and all this kind of stuff. So it's quite nice to think about that down the line. But I guess you've worked with some of the the absolute best. What's the common trait, Phil, between all these the best guys? What's the common denominator?
Just their confidence. I do see the true common denominator is confidence. Like whether I'm talking to Joanna or Dustin, or Amanda Nunes, they're super confident in their abilities. They think they're the best in the world at all times. Even when they lose, they still think they're the best in the world, and they should feel like that. Otherwise, they won't be where they're at today. They won't be the elite, and that's one thing. You can work hard. There's a lot of hard workers in the gym. And if you're a fighter or an athlete at a professional level or in the college level and high school level, because some kids are really hungry, I see that the guys that are fairly there all the time, very consistent, they work hard. They can either be very good or they can be subpar, and so the work ethic there should be all the way around. You should always have a hard work ethic. But I know that, even the guys that work hard, there's a reason why they work harder, because they're not necessarily, and I hate to say this because it sounds kind of bad, but there may be an issue of the confidence thing. And they're trying to build confidence based off of their preparation and their work ethic, which that can help for sure. And I think on the come up, on the rise to being elite, it takes that extra effort. It takes that, less of sleep. It takes that, that one more training session. And even though it may not be the best thing to do from a health standpoint, from a mental standpoint, it's going to give you the confidence needed to go into the cage ring, playing field with the most amount of confidence in your preparation and your approach to getting the job done. And so when it comes down to the elite of the elite, they already have that, and now it's to the point where they're learning their body and they're understanding how to properly manage their own fatigue, because they already have that confidence. They know that they need to, they know that they need to prepare for the fight or the game. But they also have to be smart in their approach, and getting people around them to buy into that same approach is what's going to take you to the next level, because you're only as good as your teammates on the side. You see what I'm saying? The guys that are working with you, the guys that are training with you, sparring with you, if those guys don't get good, you're going to still be the same, because they'll never challenge you. Yeah. You see what I mean? So you have to bring those. Yeah. And that's why I also see, if you're talking about common themes, you see guys that want to bring other people up to help them, because they know if they help them get stronger, get faster, get better technique, they're going to ultimately help them get stronger, get faster, and have better technique, and push the envelope a bit more and push their training to the next level. And that's why, gyms like AKA and American Top Team and Jackson Wink and those gyms there, Sanford MMA, there's like an iron sharpens iron type of deal where all those individuals are very, very good. So when a major athlete, an extreme champion, comes into the gym and he has other killers around him, he has no choice but to get better, because he has to fight every day in the gym. It's not a walk in the park. So it comes a time where you get to that level where you can't be the biggest fish in the smallest pond. You need to even out the playing field a little bit to get better.
Yeah, that's one of the things. The difference is, to America, to Scotland, or even the UK in general, is there's such a depth in talent. That stuff doesn't. There's the only place in Scotland like that would be higher level, which is not a million miles away. Like Stephen Ray trains out of there in the UFC, Danny Henry as well. And that's kind of like the go-to place. Out with that, there's not, there's nowhere else with high level, multiple guys. So It must be amazing to be in, one of those gyms, Jackson Wenk or, ATT, and, fucking John Jones walks through the door or Amanda Nunes walks through the door. And you're like, holy shit. The only thing that I can compare that with is in the Scottish national team, the boxing team. There was only one session. Josh Taylor.
Yeah.
The 140. Yeah. So Josh Taylor was in the GB team, and he came back to train with the Scottish team like once. And there was a lot of good guys in that team. Josh just stood out so much. He was so much better than everybody else. But I was there, and you go, holy shit, that's Josh Taylor. And then it was like, you fucking must work harder, way harder. So yeah, but that's the only time that ever happened to you. But it's not, the confidence things. And I've only had one friend from that whole team. Josh Taylor went on and done really well. A friend of mine called Kieran Smith. He's a light middleweight, really good, and he's the only guy that I see that actually trains properly. Everybody else does, the traditional old school kind of boxing shit, and you go, yeah, okay, you're training hard, but you're not training smart. Kieran does everything right, and when he's from the first bell, when you can see a fighter, Phil, and the way they respond to the bell and come out, and you go, this guy's confident, or this girl's confident. The body language. They go, I'm confident that I have 12 rounds, or whatever it is, 5 rounds in the MMA, and they look confident, and it just radiates out from them. Like, this guy's It's an interesting thing that, like you say, the confidence side of things. So I can only imagine what like Joanna's like on fucking when she's just about there. It must be something to be around.
It's so funny, man, because I know her on a personal level, and she's like a sweet girl, like super nice, cares about everybody. But during that fight week and then that fight night, she hits a switch and like, oh, now okay, she's champion now. She's not you want a champion. It's like she's untouchable, And you can see
I was going to say how much.
Sorry, I was just going to say. I think. Oh, sorry.
Oh, you go.
No, I was going to say there was a fight with Joanna. I think it might have been Rose Namajunas the first time, and she had like a water bottle, and on it had like it was like whatever it was, 10 days till I get to punch a bitch in the face, and like his bitch had it on Instagram, and you just looked at her, you're like, she's fucking crazy. Like she seems like. Because you see her, Instagram when there's no fight on and she's on a boat and she's out, having fun. But then, like, she seems to be so mean. Like it just seems so mean on the build up to a fight. It's
it's like
she seems like
I would say she turns it on. She'll come to camp about 8 weeks out, maybe 10 weeks out, and then she's good for a good maybe 3 weeks. She's still happy. And then all of a sudden you get to about 5 to 6 weeks out, and it's like a switch has been made, and you're like, oh, here we. And I know because we've been through. I want to say 7 or 8 camps together. So, but she's awesome, man. She's actually really. She's a pleasure to be around because she has excellence. And that's something that I love to be around. I love to be around people that do extraordinary things, that are exceptional and phenomenal in life. And that's something that she is. So it's really dope to be around because that's what we all strive to be. We want to be successful. You have to be around those people. And that's why I feel like being around those individuals helped me catapult my career as a coach and really get to the level and be successful because of the fact that I was around. I had no choice. Because I was around such greatness,
How much more energy does someone like you mentioned, like Amanda, Joanna, Dustin? How much more energy does that bring when they're heading towards that pinnacle of the fight camp, those last 2 or 3 weeks, to like the general room? Because I'd imagine there's more than just one-on-ones going on. Is there like that buzz around the place when it's coming in and feeds on to the other fighters that are maybe out of camp or maybe heading into a camp? Does it all kind of translate across? Do they all work together like that, Phil?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because, with like Joanna and Dustin, we usually keep them separate because they're so intense, and
Okay.
very hard for other fighters, when we're talking about strength and conditioning primarily, because they want to compete at everything they do when they get into that particular phase of camp. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely cranked up another notch. When we were getting ready for Habib, when Dustin was getting ready for Habib, I had to take him outside of the gym even. Like, he couldn't even go into the gym for his strength and conditioning. So, like, because they're there all the time, when I was at American Top Team, they were there all the time. So they would come in, they would do their jiu-jitsu, they would do their grappling, they would do their sparring, and then they would have to come back to me at night. And they, most of the time, you don't want to see those walls again, man. This is like monotonous. So we used to we took them out to the field and to the turf and up the stadium stairs, and that was something where we were able to capture that. That particular scene in a lot of like my videos and his videos for his sponsors, but you could just feel it, in the air. And when you have something so, I guess, it's so astronomical, it's the biggest event of their lives in a sense, right? Your sense of urgency and your approach is heightened because you know that this is going to change their lives in many ways, so that's the goal when we're talking, getting to an individual's mindset. We have to make sure that we know that this is the breaking point. This is the time where we need to put up or shut up. And that's the type of stuff that I really live for, in a sense, as a coach. Those very high priority fights, it's fun. Obviously, any coach would say that, but me living it for so long right now and doing it so many times, it's the only thing that I would say the only thing, but it's definitely a highlight of my career and my life when those happen.
Yeah. Is it difficult? Or I know it will be difficult, but how difficult is it? When again, Joanna, because you had that outrageous fight with Zhili Zhuang. How difficult is it for you to watch that when you were personally friends with her?
Yeah, it was tough. I was in Vegas and I watched it in the stands, and I'm so biased. So I'm like watching the fight, and I'm watching her get off on Weili, and I'm like, all right, she's doing really well. And then I started to see her take damage, and in my mind, I'm like, oh no, she's winning the fight, and they're doing really well. Then I think it was like the third or fourth round, and I was like, I looked back and I'm like, damn, this is a really fucking good fight. Just as a fight fan, I was like, this is one of the best of the century, like almost, you know what I mean? And it was difficult to watch because I know how much damage she took and how much pain she was in, taking shots. And even though it's not as bad as it seems, it is painful to get hit, over and over in the same spot with a hematoma just growing out of the side of your head, So it was difficult to watch for sure. But we went to the hospital and she was like, again, true champion, smiles all the way around. Got back to the hotel and we partied in her hotel room with all of the bandages on her head and her head swollen beyond belief, and had all of her Polish family in there. So we partied till about, I want to say 7 a.m. And I was like, man, I gotta go, but it was yeah, but yeah, just watching that, it is difficult for sure. I actually left where I was sitting and I went up to the VIP section with the rest of the UFCPI guys. And I kind of didn't even want to watch the ending of it because it was just accumulation over and over again. I just got a couple of drinks and started backing them off, backing them down, and that was it, man. But yeah, it was crazy.
I'm always interested. This is the part I'm always interested in, Phil. So, like, in that fight, and when Deontay Wilder fought Tyson Fury, and then they wanted an immediate rematch, and I'm going, if I was the coach, I'd be saying, listen, go and rest for 6 months, do nothing, have a good break, because that was a hell of a fight. So what do you, as a friend and as a coach, did you tell her to don't take anything for a while, or do you say get right back in there?
In my opinion, that fight, I felt like she won the fight, and she won it. I mean, honestly, like, I know there's no real winning unless you actually win, but I feel like she lost on the scorecards. I think she won in people's eyes, a lot of people's eyes. I know that she likes to take breaks because of how long she's been in the sport and how long she's actually been fighting. She has over 150 kickboxing, Muay Thai fights, not including MMA. So it's been a long time of putting herself through the ringer and putting herself through camps. So, you know, she likes to give herself a lot of time off. And I like the fact that she likes to take, because she has a lot of things going on in her life. So that's always a good thing. And yeah, honestly, man, I wouldn't be surprised and I wouldn't be mad if she retired after that fight, you know, even though she lost on the scorecards or whatever. You know, I believe it was a moral victory, in my opinion. You know, with that. But
I completely
know
agree.
Who she is, and she's not gonna retire off of a loss, you know, or at least, you know, she's gonna try not to. So I mean, we'll see what happens next.
I agree with that completely. It's one of those fights where you go, you know, it's been a hell of a career, a great career. Really, you know, she's hopefully made a good amount of money, and you know, especially when you like somebody, you go, why do you continue to get hit in the head now? What, like, you know, fucking, you've achieved everything, but like you say, that you know, it's easy. I think you know, fighters are a different kind of breed, and you know, they always believe there's one more there. So, you know, actually, we had another friend of mine, actually, a guy called Gareth Walker. He's the current British bare knuckle heavyweight champion. And you know, he won it, lost it, and won it back. And you know, he was, you know, maybe having one more, you know, because he's 40 years old now. A guy that I had boxed in the amateurs, and he said, you know, I'm starting to slur some words, and I'm like, man, like, stop, like, just, why are you doing this now? Like, stop, like, don't fucking do it anymore. And he's kind of like, nah, you know, I might fucking have one more, and, you know, come down and spar. And I'm like, no, I'm not hitting you in the head, man. If you're telling me you're slurring words. So yeah, it's you know, trying to tell them enough's enough.
That was one of the main reasons why I retired, really, from the sport, was the fact that I was getting concussions. You know, I mean, I had a series of concussions from football, from American football. You know, from since I was 7 years old, and I was like, man, listen, the last fight I was getting ready, I was 2 weeks out from my last fight, and I got kicked in the back of my head by a training partner, and we were just drilling. We weren't even really going live, and you know, I was concussed for a few days, and then it just didn't subside. And I was like, all right, I canceled the fight, and then I went and gone and seen a neurologist, and they were just basically telling me, like, I got to stop now, otherwise I'm gonna have Alzheimer's by the time I'm 50, and it's not gonna be a good look. And I had that decision to make, and I was thriving as a coach and for my own business itself. So I was like, you know what, man, I had a newborn son on the way. I was like, you know what, it's more important for me to do what I know I can do and take it to the next level. You know?
Yeah, definitely. I remember reading when Troy Aikman, talking football, when Troy Aikman retired because of the concussions, and he said the last time he got a concussion, he was still feeling the effects of it a year later, a full calendar year later, and he was still waking up with headaches from it. And that's when he was like, I'm going to have to hang up the pads and the lid. I don't care how much money I'm making. I don't care. I've just came off an MVP season. At some point, you just have to say, you know, I'm done.
For sure, definitely.
Yeah. It's when you count up, I counted up once. I tried to count how many times you've been hit in the head, you know, from sparring and from fights, and it, you know, I gave up, you know, around, like, you know, well into, you know, many thousands, 5, 6, 7,000. How do you count it? You're going, that's a lot of fucking, because, you know, I thought about I did a little bit of MMA sparring just recently. I kind of thought about having an MMA fight, but.
Yeah.
Just like, fuck this shit, man. I don't fucking need to be. I've got too many other things to do. I don't need to get hit in there. I've had my fun. You know what? It's good when, not that I'm calling myself smart, but it's good, like you're saying, it's good when you're smart enough yourself to go, yeah, probably fucking, this is probably it. I don't have to do this anymore. This is dumb, man. Let somebody else get a hit in the head and I'll watch.
It did take me a while, though. It took me like 2 weeks to really, like, be like, all right, I think it's, and I had to talk to one of my coaches, you know, and actually get his advice, you know. And once he kind of gave me the go ahead in a sense, I was like, all right, well, time for me to go move on and do something that I know that I can be successful in. So that's what happened. Yeah. I don't know how many. I know I've had at least 8 of them, and that's where like I kind of put the number there. But there's been plenty more. You know what I'm saying? Just ones that I know of put me out.
Were you saying there, Phil, you started playing football at 7? Was that full tackle football at 7, or did it start at high school for tackle football?
No. I started Pee Wee football at 7 years old, and my first concussion, I was 7 years old. So
I was going to say, and you would have been, and again, I don't know how old you are, but I would imagine you're probably of a similar era-ish to me, where you were told by your coach, just shake it off, and if you can't shake it off, blink it off.
Yeah. They taught us back then. They taught us to lead with our heads. So there was.
We were told. I got told my first day playing American football. I was told when you're blocking, the first point of contact needs to be your head, then your hands. Bear in mind, I played wide receiver, so I was like, okay, that seems sensible.
Yeah, exactly. We used to be. How many scratches do we have on our helmet? And that was like a badge of honor. Like how many scratches we had, cuts in the helmet. So yeah, it was wild.
Man, it's I remember getting a while ago now sparring, and I fucking for some reason decided to run to the gym, which is like 6 miles. So I ran to the gym, and then they said, "Do you want to spar?" And because you know, as being a fighter, you go, "Yeah, I'll spar." And I got caught bang on the chin and got rocked to my socks. And it's one of those things where the coach goes, "Right, are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." Done that round, another round, and at the end of the next round, coach, "You're not okay, are you?" I was like, "I have no fucking idea what's going on, man. I don't know what the fuck's going on." And he's like, "Get out the fucking ring." But being a fighter, you're like, no, I'm fine. I'm just a bit tired.
I know it.
Yeah, that was man, it's fucking so stupid.
Phil, did you have the cheat where if they were testing concussion back in the day, I'm guessing your games of football were normally on the same day, and one of the standard questions we used to ask was, what day was it? And I always knew it was always a Sunday no matter what, so as long as I got Sunday out, they would let me go back in the pitch. With one exception, we were playing a playoff game and it was on a Saturday, and I just said Sunday. And that was like, "You got to sit down now, man. You're not getting back in the field." I was like, "Oh, damn it."
Yeah, they would ask you, where are you right now? And then, but I remember in games, because in high school we play Friday nights. So in games, I would be on the field and thinking I was on the sideline, or I'd be on the sideline thinking I was on the field, or not knowing the transition between getting off the bench and back on the field. And when that kind of the time lapse was like not there. So I'm like, wait a minute, I was just on the field. What happened? You know what I mean? So and then I went and then I played it in college. And then that was even worse, because I was an undersized linebacker / strong safety. So, and I was a gunner on the kickoff team. So I was busting through a wedge of 300 pounders. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, it was interesting. It was interesting. Like how many years that is? I don't even know. It's probably like 15, about 15 years, give or take. And then you add on MMA, you add on another 8 to 10 years. That's a lot of years. You know what I mean?
That's a lot in the head.
Just to explain to Chris what a gunner is on the kickoff, Chris, you basically run at full speed for about 60 yards, would you say, Phil? And then run headfirst into someone and hope that you don't get knocked out.
Seems like a good idea. I don't see any problems. Carry on.
It's similar to the first dumb motherfucker in like the old school class of war. When they all come together. I'm the first dumbass of everybody, all of them. So that's it.
Now, when you say you were undersized, Phil, what size? How big are you? Because we had an NFL guy on, a linebacker. What was Joe Hawley?
It was Joe Hawley, lineman. He played lineman for the Falcons.
Sorry.
Big guy then. Yeah, I was. I'm 5. So I'm 5'8", and I was probably about 210, 205.
Right. Okay.
Oh, that's undersized.
Pounds. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
undersized
'cause-
for Division I AA college football. So definitely.
Joe Hawley was telling us, I'm not an American football guy, and Joe Hawley was saying, I'm quite small. I was, I was like 6'2.5", 6'3", and like 280, and I'm like, what? You're fucking giant. What the fuck are you talking about?
For a lineman, he's undersized. Yeah, from a weight perspective, bro, we had guys that were like 6'5", 320 pounds. It was fucking ridiculous,
Huge,
But
that's a giant. That's
yeah.
a giant human being, right?
Yeah.
So, one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, I mentioned bare knuckle boxing. I seen you doing some stuff with Paige.
Yeah.
How do you like? What's your thoughts on the bare knuckle thing?
Man, it's hard, man. I'm not really fully bought in, to be honest with you. I'm gonna say that in confidence. I hope it does well. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna get Paige ready for it. I have another guy, Jake Boswick. He's over there. He's from London, but he lives in Miami now, or lives in the U.S. And Jake's had over 30 MMA fights, and so transitioning over to that. And Paige obviously is a world-renowned fighter. Everybody knows what she is. When it comes down to it, though, man, I don't know if it's ever gonna get as big as MMA or boxing. In general. Know if the public is really going to take to it as much because of so much, not so much of like, I know it's actually less damaging because they don't throw a lot. The lacerations is what's going to cause people to not tune in. You know what I mean? All the blood in the cuts and things of that nature. That's going to cause a lot of the lay fans not really want to check it out. And that's going to be trying to, build the brand and build, sales and viewing. So we'll see what happens. But again, I'm going to get her ready. They're obviously paying very well for athletes that are looking to go ahead and transition. You got like Thiago Alves is going in there, Hector Lombard. These are all my guys I used to work with that are friends of that I want to see do well, and they're getting paid very well. And it's good for them because, again, their MMA careers aren't there anymore. They're trying to transition to something new.
It's one of those things where when a guy gets to a certain age or a girl gets to a certain age and somebody's willing to pay enough dollars, you say, yeah, man, fuck it. If you can make that kind of money and you're not going to get yourself too badly hurt, because it has to be a certain point with every fighter. If they get offered a fight, it's risk versus reward, and if the reward's enormous, fuck it, man. Everybody has to make a living, right?
It's interesting. I want to see how she does, with Paige. She's working with Maureen Shea with her boxing. You guys don't know who Maureen Shea is, man. Just check any.
I actually seen earlier on, I was just looking through your Instagram, looking at videos, and it's one of these things with, I think a lot of people, I don't anymore, because we have Katie Taylor kind of over here, and she's legit. She's not good for a woman. She's just good. And, I watched you doing some mitt stuff with her. And you could tell from the way she moves and she pivots, she creates angles. You go, yeah, she's good. Not good for a woman. She's just fucking good. Very sharp and very, just the movement. You could tell by the movement that she's very, very good.
Yeah, a technician. So that's something that Paige really needs right now from a technical side for boxing, at least, because she's coming from that MMA kind of, jolty in and out background. And, what we want to do is we want to increase her ability to have awareness and have and increase her defense, and work on that head movement, work on being in control inside the pocket. Maureen is going to be, an astronomical figure in that progression. I would say for me, the goal for me is to get her stronger, to gain more power output, because it's 2-minute rounds. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, conditioning does need to be there, but the goal of this sport is to knock them out, is to knock your opponent out 100%. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People want that. So we can increase that power production. That's going to be key for sure.
Yeah. How much coaching difference is involved, Phil? We're going from, from MMA a 4 or a 6 ounce glove, or from a boxing 16 ounce glove down to no gloves, because you're not going to be able to really have a guard that you would in traditional boxing, where you can kind of play a bit peekaboo? Is that because I think that's going to be one of the things that can make or break bare knuckle as well? Is do people go back and look at essentially 100 years ago, 1920s, and Jim Braddock and like we're saying,
John L. Sullivan.
Yeah, the kind of lean back style rather than tucking and walking forward behind the gloves. Is that going to play a big part in it? Do we think?
Yeah, I in a lot of ways, if they're not just fucking crazy, you're gonna see not a whole lot of action. Those old school fights, you didn't see a whole lot, with the bare knuckle. But we'll see, man. I think obviously the distance is gonna be a little bit different. Strengthening up their hands are definitely going to be more of a concern. We need to make sure that their hands, their wrists, those are strengthened up accordingly, because you don't have that. I mean, you have protection on your wrist, but still, you got bare. There's nothing on your knuckles, so we want to make sure that we're bone density. Just not so that can, protect the athlete as much as possible. It's not going to totally prevent, but we can reduce the risk. And yeah, man, I think from an action standpoint, is just being able to move the head, because you don't have the guard there, you don't have the gloves there. You can't play peekaboo, you can't do any of that shit. You have to be able to move, duck, hit positions and maneuver your way out of there. And good pivots, foot movement, things of that nature. That's going to play a big role. One of
the I remember when when Paulie Malignaggi had announced he was going to fight Artem. As a I was a Paulie fan, and it's just, he's so wrong for he can't fucking crack an egg, as I say. And it was such a bad move from the get go. You're like, Paulie, like it's one of those things where as a friend you go, Paulie, put your arm around you, Paulie, why this is so fucking bad. This is such a terrible idea for you. I don't know who advised him on that.
Definitely,
it was all wrong for him.
Definitely not the best move. I think guys that are going to excel in this sport are guys that are going to bite down on their mouthpiece, come forward, and hit you with every fucking thing that they have. And you have nothing. You're laying people out, with fucking 16-ounce gloves on. You take that glove off, man, and it's bad. You know what I mean? That's why I like Jake Bostwick. If you guys don't know who Jake Bostwick is, man, go ahead. Hit him up on see his YouTube and stuff. But he also is a lot on my Instagram. But one of the strongest athletes I have, can squat, well over 400 pounds, can deadlift well over 500 pounds, but can fucking move. He's explosive and he can crack, man. He can punch. So and he's like a pit bull. He's thick, he's like 205 pounds, my size, 5'8", 5'9", and just tatted up all over the fucking place. He looks like a fighter for sure. You know what I'm saying? So that's the guy that you want to have in a bare knuckle fight. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't want to have Paulie Malignaggi in a fucking bare knuckle fight. It just didn't even look.
It was such a terrible idea. When the fight was announced, it's what there's certain fights get announced. You just think, who the fuck? One of the most recent ones was did you see? Shit, I forgot the name now. A couple of weeks ago, there was a women's fight. And the girl came out. What was her name? Some girl came out, and she was like 5-0, and she was fighting somebody who was a world champion. And she came out, and it was one of those things where she came out and they stood and kind of put her hands up and got knocked the fuck out in like 10 seconds. It's just like, who the fuck? It was hilarious, but like really scary.
I don't really
doing like what.
I don't like seeing that. I don't like seeing mismatches like that, though. You know what I'm saying?
No.
I want to see two guys or two girls in there that are evenly matched, and they're going at it, bro. And I think that's another thing. Is like you can't not have an evenly matched fight in this sport when you're trying to build the sport. I think guys and they gotta, how they say it's like styles make fights, and matchups are everything. And you got to have two guys that are willing to go in there and pull out the best of each other. And I think that or girls or whatever have you. But, I think that's something that they need to get, a handle on very quickly, because MMA and boxing are doing that. And they've been doing that for years.
The Paige stuff. Do you think does being Paige Van Zandt, does that hurt her or help her? Because, you know, I'm assuming some people will give her shit because she's a fucking good-looking girl.
Yeah.
But open doors, because, you know, how does it work? You almost feel sorry for somebody in that position, because you know, you think some people just don't take her seriously, but she's a fucking good fighter.
She's tough though, man. Just because she looks like, you know, she's a pretty girl, and she's, you know, but at the end of the day, she's a tough fucking son of a bitch, man. She's honestly, if you look at the fight, she's never really given up. Like you seen one of the,
Yeah, but her arm was all broken.
Yeah, like she doesn't give up, and I tested her out, you know, because I do like to see, you know, inside the weight room or inside the training room, how much actual mental toughness are they gonna have, and how much pride are they gonna have, and I put her through this one test that I usually can see that, and she pushed it until I had to stop the test, which really showed me who she was, you know, personally. Obviously, you see it on TV, but and I talked to her a little bit more and why she wanted to do it, and she's all game, man. And I think that the only thing that she needs to start to get comfortable with is her technical ability, you know, her technique. And once that happens, once she gets confident in her hands and her movement, then it's gonna be fun to watch. You're gonna see a pretty girl go in there and try to take heads off, and that's a superstar in the making. She's already a superstar, but in that particular sport, she can really aim up a little bit more now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I even, to be fair, I thought her husband Austin, you know, I didn't really know an awful lot about him, and you know, I just seen them on Instagram and stuff, and you go, okay, this guy's just, you know, a little bit of a poser. And then he fucked up Richie Martinez, and went, "Oh shit, he's legit." Yeah. You know, when you and you know, I suppose everybody's guilty of it, and I was guilty of it, kind of going, "Okay, he's a little bit of a poser." He went on the stage of posting like loads of like almost naked shit, and you go, "This guy's a fucking poser." And he fucked up Richie Martinez, and it's like, "Oh, okay, he can fight his ass off." But what?
I haven't chance to meet him yet. Because he caught COVID, so now they're you know, they're getting their quarantine on. But yeah, man, I know that he could fight. And the thing was, it was a fact that I think they met in Oregon. So I'm not gonna speak out of turn with this because I don't know the true story. But I mean, the kid, he was a fighter way before he met Paige. You know what I'm saying? So he could fucking what I heard, and he's at American Top Team right now, working with some of the best. So you know, we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, if you can submit Richie Martinez, man, you can fight for sure. One of the things I wanted to ask you, Phil, was so when you work with a new athlete, how do you go about? I'm assuming you have like a base test to see where everybody is. How do you go about judging people? Like what's how do you go about that?
There's several different things that we'll do. We got a physical exam, we got a physiological exam, also have a mental exam and a personality test. Because I want to see who I'm working with. That's first and foremost. So I'll sit them down for about an hour and a half. They'll do what's called a Braverman's test, and it's a personality exam, and it measures your neurotransmitter dominance. So if somebody's acetylcholine dominant or dopamine dominant, I'll get an understanding of how they react to certain things and how I should actually coach them. And then we'll have just a conversation on, like, you know, what's their why and why are they where they're at now, and why do they come to see me, and what do they feel like is necessary for them to get to the next level or get to that championship fight, or, you know, whatever have you. And then I'll get them on the training floor, and we'll go through a physiological assessment. So, you know, baseline testing. I'm just trying to see general fitness. I'm trying to see how well they're get into camp. So whether that be like a VO2 test, a lactate threshold test, a field-based test that we do is called a maximal aerobic speed test or a maximal aerobic power test. And I'll do that with like basic things like an assault bike or an ergometer or, you know, something like that I can measure out power production at the highest level in the aerobic zones. And that can give me a gauge on how much I need to push them from a percentage standpoint. Other things like strength, you know, strength endurance, maximal strength, absolute strength, things of that nature, and then relative strength depending on the weight class. Mobility assessment. I'll do what's called functional range assessments. It's a functional range conditioning principle, and all it is we're going through controlled articular rotations of each joint capsule. So I'm starting from like with Paige, I started from her big toe. Like I was just trying to see how well she can manipulate and move her big toe and articulate the joints. If she has true control of her toes and of her feet, well, she'll have better overall ability to create force onto the ground. And from there, go up the kinetic chain into the outer extremities to allow us to produce that force appropriately to get that knockout. So again, it starts from the feet, starts from the ground up. And then we'll go through the ankle, the knee, the hip, spine. I'll watch for stability issues. That's something that we like to do on the floor. So I'll do like a side plank. I'll do a bear crawl variation or a catwalk. Those are just like primal movements that I'm just trying to see proprioception. I'm just trying to see how well they can maneuver themselves in space, have that kinesthetic awareness. And then also just stabilize the trunk. That's important when you're trying to produce force. Because if you can have proximal stiffness, we can increase mobility extremities. And we can also that energy from the trunk out to the outer extremities with maximal force. So again, it all starts from the ground into the midsection, and we can have those strong and stable and have active end range control in those joints. We're gonna be really set to do the things we need to do to get them better for the fight. So that's the base. I also do breath holds, and I'll do a CO2 tolerance test, and that's basically showing me how to utilize and take in oxygen. And that's going to be very good to know, because we got to see, all right, are they going to be able to buffer out lactate more efficiently than a person who can't use that oxygen as efficient, and they can't produce ATP or adenosine triphosphate, which is, I don't want to get too sciencey, but it's like the body's natural energy source, right? Produce that, then they can produce more energy in the fight, and they can reproduce power outputs for a long duration. And that's really what the goal is with any sport, any power endurance sport. The goal is repeated efforts. So we want to be able to repeat the intensity for the entire time of the fight or the match. So those are my go-to, really, and I have like a ton of other ones that I feel is necessary depending on the person. It's really subjective, because I gotta, and then you're looking at. Then I'm also going over scheduling. I'm going over, how well they're able to recover from training sessions, what their experiences are inside the weight room and outside the weight room, whether it be from a martial arts or a boxing standpoint, or if they had a college background where they did some strength and conditioning there and they have a base of strength. If they don't have that, and a lot of fighters don't, then we have to start them off on a general physical fitness regimen where they're just basically most simple movements to induce more strength and power, and down the line, of course, and just gain those prerequisites needed to go for a higher level of performance going further inside of camp.
So like I'm going to assume that would you tell somebody from the beginning? So if it's somebody new that you've never worked with, would you say to them, we really need a year together to really make this work, or do you work on camp by camp?
I mean, it's very hard to tell a fighter we're gonna need to do a year of training before we see.
Not but would you say a year down the line we could be in a fucking really strong position, but we'll get there slowly? Do you like?
Yeah. So a lot of times, yes. Like I'll say, you know what, we're gonna see tremendous increases. Because they'll come to me before a fight. Obviously, a lot of the guys will come to me for a fight, and you usually have about 8 weeks out, 10 weeks out, 12 weeks out. Or, they'll come to me short notice, and the shortest notice I will do is 6 weeks, nothing less than 6 weeks, because it's kind of pointless at that point. You know what I mean? Like, you give me 5 or 4 weeks, I'm not going to be able to do much. I'm just maintaining. And if anything, if I'm throwing something new at you, you're probably going to be sore, and it's going to have a negative effect on your preparation. So I kind of let them, if they come to me before weeks out, I kind of just tell them, like, all right, I give them like a standard conditioning plan, but nothing crazy. And I'll tell them to come back to me once they're done with their fight, and we can start a full off camp and in session and progression. But yeah, ideally, you want to have at least 2 or 3 camps in to really understand an athlete and how they recover and how they utilize the techniques and the protocols that we're trying to accomplish for their own good. And again, it just takes time, because it takes time for the coach to understand the athlete and the athlete to understand the coach's system. So definitely, I think it takes that amount of time. And the good thing is that I put a large amount of my content online, and I do that for two reasons. One, I want to help coaches, and two, I want to help fighters that can't necessarily train with me, but want to do it the right way, in a sense. And most of the time, like a guy by the name of Randy Costa, who was a very young UFC fighter, undefeated, knockout artist. He was following me on Instagram and following my workouts prior to him even coming to American Top Team and starting with me. So when he came into the system, he already knew half of what I do. Now it's a little different, obviously, because I'm hands-on and I can't put everything out there. But he knew what I was planning on doing because he followed me in all the content I put out, which is really good, because then we can kind of hit the ground running a little bit more, as opposed to me kind of getting them into the system, having them buy into the system, and then go from there. So that's why I love the fact that I have a platform to show that content. And that was the reason why I started doing that too, as well, is because I was getting a ton of inquiries from other fighters that couldn't make it to ATT or, to me in person, and they were able to follow along. And that's why I developed those programs and everything like that, so that people can still get the training in necessary, but not have to travel, or me have to travel there, so it works out.
What's the big difference, Phil, in your programming between the camp stuff and the off season or the non-camp? Is it predominantly volume differences, or is it changing exercise? Is it more build and then maintain? What's the main difference between the two sort of phases, or multiple phases, depending on how you set it up?
It's different on all fronts. I would say it's different exercises. The exercises that we use are more general in nature outside of camp. The movements, the volume, the frequency is going to be higher in camp or outside of camp than in camp. In camp, we're working more from a strength and speed perspective. We're working more strength, speed, power, in camp, because we're trying to maximize our power production at that time. Outside of camp, we're trying to develop base of strength so that can potentiate into that power production and that absolute strength. Building up some hypertrophy in the right places, even though, again, it's a weight class sport. We want to make sure that we're building a sense of armor on the body so that we can take care of the body. The body can withstand loads and absorption of force. And that also is not just for muscle, that's for tendons and soft tissue. So the ligaments and tendons need to be tightened and stiffened in order for us to have that stretch reflex increased. And that's going to help them with explosive power, rate of force production, so things of that nature. And we want to start small, we want to start slow, and then progress from there. So we'll do a large amount of aerobic work. We'll do a large amount of strength endurance and strength, I would say general strength work with sled drag variations and prowler push variations, simple squat patterns, push press, carry patterns, in certain type of tempos so that we can develop local muscular endurance. That's going to be very important when you're trying to have the ability to buffer out lactic acid, especially in a sport that requires a large amount of quasi-isometrics or, tension, relaxation. That's gonna hinder your snap on your punch or snap on your kicks or your takedowns. So we want to be able to have the ability to have a large aerobic base. So again, like I talked about with oxygen utilization, we want to be able to do that. We want to be able to increase that and increase our VO2 max to a degree so that we can increase our buffering capacity. And that's going to be crucial when you're talking about, let's say, for instance, a guy with a wrestling background who's going to constantly take shots over and over again to try to get the fight to the ground. And that takes a large amount of muscular strength and glycogen. And, if they can't recover, if they can't use oxygen to recover, the goal really, again, is to make sure that they have the ability to repeat those bouts and increase the ATP production. So we need oxygen to do that, so that's first and foremost. And then once we get into camp, we focus on the things that they're going to be really good at, their focus points inside the fight, what their game plan is. And then we can direct the exercises that'll have the highest correspondence to whatever their game plan is, whether that be, they're trying to take their opponent down, we'll probably be doing a large amount of Zercher squats or something that's going to be in a hinge pattern. Good mornings are going to be very important. If they're trying to stop a shot, we're going to be doing a lot of hip extension work anyways. So a lot of it's going to be posterior chain dominant. We'll be doing a lot of split stance variations or lateral movements, multi-directional patterns, change of direction, things of that nature, because we want them to be able to get in and out of the pocket and be able to change direction and increase the ability to absorb and redirect force. That's very important too as well. And that's just from MMA. If I'm looking at boxing or judo or jiu-jitsu, same thing. We want to make sure that we're understanding the sport and the demands that are in the sport from a bioenergetic demand standpoint and from a biomechanics standpoint. And then I can correlate the movements and the tempos and the methods and modalities of training to adhere to the specifics of the sport and help the athlete out.
That makes sense. I'll give you a laugh. Well, I'm a sports science grad as well, like yourself. And one of our lecturers, just when you talking about buffer and lactic acid, one of our lecturers at the time was a cross country runner and was in the British cross country team. So you're going back to the kind of late 90s when he was competing at the top level. So back in the dark days of sports science. And one of the things that his coach had told him to do to buffer lactic acid was to take a lot of bicarbonate of soda and drink it. But the only problem is when you take a lot of bicarbonate of soda, it also has a laxative effect. And he won the British cross country championships and was interviewed live on BBC over here. And the guy was like, "So you've just beaten the British record?" He's like, "Can I have a minute? I've shit myself." And he was literally just covered. This tiny little 80s style cross country shorts. I just shat all down his legs because as he was running, literally pouring out of him. Because he reckoned he'd had about 15 grams of bicarbonate of soda in the build up to the race, and he just shat it all out as he was running.
I'll tell my guys to do like a quarter teaspoon of baking soda, quarter, if that. Sometimes that's too much. I had a guy one time that misinterpreted teaspoon to tablespoon. Oh yeah. He was in the bathroom all day long. He didn't make it to training that day. But there's things like beet juice that I like to have the guys take. We'll take like 2 glasses a day of beet juice. That's gonna, obviously it's a vasodilator, so that's gonna help blood flow. And that's what you really want. You really want maximal blood flow and increasing the ability to get the oxygen to the working tissue. So
just being down in the southern states as well. Where's your stance on pickle juice for cramping?
I used to do it in college. I mean, if you like it, I don't see why not. It's sodium, in all actuality. I think you should always be salting your foods, preferably pink Himalayan salt because it has 84 trace minerals in it. So I'll have my guys do that. I do that. I think if you're salting your foods and you're making sure that your ratio of water intake to salt are appropriate, you'll be fine. I think I got this one from Stan Efferding. You guys know who Stan Efferding is? He does vertical diet. Power lifter, strongman, bodybuilder guy, super smart. But he says for every gallon of water, you need to take in 3 grams of sodium. So every gallon. So I usually have the guys think about, and it's in Florida, it's humid here, we sweat a lot. 2 gallons is standard for us, so 2 gallons, that's what's that? 8 liters, I believe, right? 8 liters of water?
Yeah, just maybe 9.
Yeah, give or take.
Yeah,
so
maybe 9. Yeah, a little bit more, I think.
6, looking at like probably about 5 to 6 grams of sodium a day, and that's pretty standard. You know what I mean? I would, and especially if you're salting your foods and then taking in some type of electrolyte drink after training or or training. I like to do that too as well. I also have them do if the training session requires a large amount of glycogen, I would have them do some sort of dextrose, so like a branch cyclic dextrin, something that's going to be fast acting, has like high digestion, ability to digest faster, I should say. And I'll do that intra-workout. So they'll do some type of amino, whether it be branched-chain amino acid, then they'll do some branch cyclic dextrin, and then some sort of electrolyte like powder. So they'll get the potassium, magnesium, sodium, and they'll drink that. They'll sip that throughout their workout. That's only when they're doing like weight training movements or something that's highly glycolytic in a conditioned fashion. And that's for performance benefits, not for like, obviously not for, body fat reduction or anything like that.
Now, one of the things that, because we've been talking about sport-specific stuff here, I was watching, I watched actually a little bit of your podcast with Steffi Bowen. And you guys were talking about, the ability to do, I think it was powerlifting, boxing, or generally two sports. Like, can you do them both at a good level? I didn't finish. I've not finished watching that podcast yet. But what was your take? Do you think you could do two sports at a good level, or because she was quite adamant, it seemed that it's not possible. A good level, you just can't seem to do two.
Who's Steffi? You was talking about Steffi?
Yeah.
I mean, listen, if she has the ability to totally focus on that particular field of training, if she takes certain aspects of work ethic and athleticism and her strength into it, and then she takes her ability to be coachable, I do believe that it is possible. Are you going to reach the pinnacle of success in, two different? I think it's very seldom that you see that. I think like Bo Jackson was one of those guys. There's not a whole lot. Even Michael Jordan kind of failed miserably at that. So it's very hard to do. Only a chosen few, if any, can probably accomplish it. But I do feel that if you can focus, you can be successful. I don't know if you're going to be the most elite, but you can successful in it as long as you are focused and you have the right people around you.
It was just an interesting point. Can you be really good at two things, or do you have to specialize? It was just it's an interesting conversation. I will finish that at some point. But I think the last thing, because we're kind of moving on in time now. We've went past that. Always get away with. The last thing I want to talk to you about is fight guy. What kind of fantasy fights? What would be your all-time fantasy fight? Any sport, MMA, boxing, whatever you want. What would be your fantasy fight?
Fuck. All right. So, Mike, can I merge sports? Can I merge them?
Yeah, fuck, man.
It's your fantasy. Go for it.
Yeah. So I want prime Mike Tyson. And I want John Jones in his prime.
Ooh.
in out. And I want it with MMA gloves, no kicks, in wrestling.
Holy shit.
So, but here, a lot of people say, well, John's going to take him down, right? But have you ever, and these are probably new people that'll say that, but if you ever watched Tyson's movement, good luck trying to take him down, trying to grab that dude. He's going to tear you up. If he gets you on the inside, good luck. So that would be something I would want to see for sure. Would be a prime Mike Tyson with MMA gloves and no kicks involved. Perfect.
Murder somebody. Prime Mike with 4-ounce gloves on would probably break somebody's jaw. Take it right off their head. It's always one of those things. I love the the fantasy fight thing. You can go in as many as you want. I think one that probably almost happened, far too late would be Anderson Silva and Roy Jones in a similar kind of blend of, probably no grappling but allow some kick. That'd be amazing. Prime Roy, I've said this to Ali so many times. Prime Roy Jones is the most. A guy who did fucking everything wrong, but was amazing.
I know.
A jab, nah, man. I'm not going to bother with a jab. Man. I'm just going to lunge into this left hook. Like, what the fuck? That's my guy. Roy Jones. And actually, it's quite interesting now because Roy and Mike are going to fight. If they'd had that fight like 2002 when Roy had beat John Ruiz, that would have been a fucking great fight.
Yeah.
A great fight. I'd have loved to have seen that fight.
those types of fights are like, damn, if it was only like a few years back or like both of them in their prime, you never know. And I do believe in this fight though. I think Mike's gonna take him, even though like I'm not biased because I'm a Roy Jones fan myself too. Shit, I used to listen. This is how much of a Roy Jones fan I am. I actually bought his album. His fucking that shit. I am a Roy Jones fan, but I just it's hard to like bet against the Mike Tyson that is hungry and confident and sober, you know. So that's have the right people around them. Shit, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Fine.
Did you hear, Phil, who Mike Tyson was originally offered before Roy Jones?
Was it who was it? Was it Let's Go Champ? Let's Go Champ. What's his name?
Well, no, even before that.
Shannon.
Yeah. Well, Shannon. Yeah, but apparently before that, it was on Joe Rogan. I was listening to it, and he said the first fight they offered him was Bob Sapp.
Oh yeah, that would have been terrible.
400 time Bob Sapp.
Bob Sapp's so Mike and Roy are both, you know, they're both, you know, well past their sell. Bob Sapp is so shot.
Bro, he sucks.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that probably shouldn't be allowed to fight. But yeah, it's you know, I'm going to watch some. You know, who doesn't like Mike Tyson, and Roy's my guy, so I'll look forward to watching that. But yeah, I guess we've probably taken enough of your time tonight, Phil. We'll let you get on and do whatever you're doing. But yeah,
just before we do,
a nice conversation.
Yeah, just before we wind up, fully Phil there. Just so people are looking to find out more about you, you mentioned your Instagram a few times. Where can people go and find you on the internet and on Instagram? And we'll add this in the notes as well. Yeah,
sure. Thanks. My Instagram is @DaruStrong, DaruStrong. Twitter is @DaruStrong. My website is DaruStrong.com. I have all my programs, my coaching mentorship on there, my certification course. And my YouTube's blowing up right now, so I'm happy about that because I put a lot of fucking effort into that thing. Phil Daru Strong, just search that. I put a lot of videos, a lot of content on there too as well.
Yep, I subscribed. I subscribed to the YouTube earlier tonight actually because I didn't realize you had one, so I went on and went, oh fucking subscribe. So it's nice. It's nice when guys put, you know, it's nice when high level guys put out content because you can actually look and go, I'm kind of going down the right route. I'm kind of getting things not a million miles wrong. So it's nice to verify that and get some ideas. And it's you're putting out some great content and obviously doing some fantastic work with some real good guys. What was the name of your the bare knuckle guy from London? I'll write that down.
Jake Bostwick. Jake JakeBostwick. Bostwick.
I'll write that down. I'll check him out because I like watching some fighters. So thanks for your time, and hopefully the knee gets better soon. And you're back to full strength and getting on again. Like you know, if you're ever in Scotland, fucking give us a shout, man. We'll have a little roll about and it brings laws, man. We can spar.
All right.
Phil Daru, episode 40 done and dusted. Thanks, guys.
All right, guys.
The Silly Goose Gang Podcast.